Hi, my name is Brian Pollock. I'm with Cincinnati Museum Center, and I'm thrilled today to bring you Annie Ruth. She's an internationally respected visual artist, poet, and author with 40 years of experience in the field. And her work celebrates the human spirit and travels to venues across the globe using her gift to reach audiences from all walks of life. She currently has an exhibit within Cincinnati Museum Center on her shoulders, and it's at Museum Center July 9th through August 30th. It's a wonderful exhibit. I really recommend if you come to Museum Center, you come check it out. Today, Annie Ruth will be presenting a collard greens recipe. Hello, Annie.
Hi, Brian. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here, doing some food education with us.
Yes, you're gonna love this recipe because collard green recipe. There's so many variations of them, and I've actually through the years adapted one that works for me.
Excellent. And this one's a little bit different from a lot of the recipes you'll see, right?
It is. It's a healthy vegan recipe, and it's a very quick one. And I always tell people this is one you can actually make collard greens with no water added to the recipe. So I know a lot of collard green connoisseurs are wondering, like, what?
Yeah, that's great. So I know that a lot of times people will boil their greens.
Yes.
And some people complain about that because it leaves them a little bit bland. If you don't, then you have to dress them up with something else.
Yeah,
right?
you gotta have the right flavor and seasonings. And this way, I actually use the vegetables to bring out that flavor of the collard green.
That's great. So tell us about collard greens. What is special about collard greens?
Well, what's special about collard greens is a lot of times people think that the way that black people cook collard greens is something that was born in the United States, and actually it is not. It is something that has actually traveled the globe. We brought it over, part of our African heritage, the way that the collard greens are simmered and what they call pot liquor is produced, which is the beautiful, nutritious broth of the green that you can actually use as a soup by itself, even without the greens in it too.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds delicious.
Yeah. So I actually, can I dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
I want to show really quickly, these are actually fresh from my garden. These collard greens, and they're pretty medium-sized leaves. You don't want to get them too large because then it makes it tougher and you actually have to cook them down a little bit more. But a lot of times people, when cooking the greens, sometimes people leave the stem in, but the stem of the collard is so thick. So I was always taught by my mom to just simply kind of go down the edge of that collard green with your knife. Nothing really fancy, but you're kind of getting that stem out of the middle, that really thick part of the stem. Kind of go down the middle like that. And then when we get that stem out, we actually take the collard green, and many times black women would sit on the porch, especially around holiday time, and you take and you roll the collard green up like this. Now, you just simply cut it up into shavings like that. So that way, you're cutting the green up, almost shredded, a shredded type of look, right? And it's easier to wash. I want to tell people washing the collard green is important because when you're washing, I usually use a salt water mix. So cold water, add salt to it, and it's actually the salt that kills the bugs. Mm-hmm. And you want to do that in your deep sink about 2 to 3 times. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when you take them out, they end up in a nice little colander like this, where the water's all strained off of them. So I'm going to dive right in. So what I have, I've got this nice heated pan here. And the first thing for my collard green recipe is the virgin olive oil. So I take, some people will take the measuring devices and pour them in. I kind of eyeball it. My mom taught me to cook it that way. Matter of fact, this is a pot that was passed down from my mom over 40 years ago. So it is not a new pot. It's been through the family. It's been burnt. It's been scrubbed, but it cooks greens so great. So you're gonna put in about maybe a tablespoon and a half to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So that's going to heat there. So your heat is going to be on medium high, or you almost kind of treat it like a wok almost. So that's heated there. Okay, so now we put that oil in there. The first thing we're going to do, because I love to hear the sizzle, and we're going to keep our metal spoon really close by, and I'm going to keep my little, even though this is an oven mitt, I have become accustomed to using it. So the first thing I'm going to do is put those onions in there, kind of stir those onions around, and they're kind of sauteing through there. So the onions are in there, and actually it is a sweet onion, a sweet Vidalia onion, kind of chopped up. That's going to add to the flavor. The next thing I'm going to do is add my sweet peppers, and I will show you all a zoom in of those. So add the sweet peppers in there. What I'm loving, oh, I'm smelling that already. Just the onions and the peppers are, man, that is smelling real good. So I'm kind of stirring that through there. And I kind of spread them out. And it's okay if it gets a little brown tinges around the corner. Now, what I like to use for the seasoning is this pink Himalayan salt. And you can either use chopped garlic or garlic powder. The garlic cloves, this is what the garlic cloves look like, or the garlic powder. For sake of convenience today, I'm going to sprinkle in a little garlic powder. There we go. And then, don't want to put it on that side. A little bit of the pink Himalayan salt. I love it because it's so, there we go, that's enough of that. Alrighty, so now, I've got my handy dandy mitt, and I'm stirring. Oh, I'm feeling like eating this up already. That's going good. So like I said, you're almost kind of treating it like a wok. I'm just kind of turning the vegetables. All right, the last thing what I'm going to do before I add the greens, I'm then going to take that the red tomato and dump it in there too. So remember I told you in most traditional collard green recipes, people are adding water. But in this case, the vegetables actually make up the water. The onions, the peppers, and the tomatoes are bringing out their own water. So I'm going to let that sit like that. That's going to get a little hotter.
And you added a little bit of salt in there, which I think is really important because
Yes.
it breaks down those vegetables and really quickly and gets the water out of them.
Oh, wow.
So if you add salt when you're sauteing, you get water out of it. If you leave it out, they stay a little crisper, but the water never comes out and forms that pot liquor.
Okay. Oh, isn't that awesome?
So when you add the salt really matters in this case.
That is, you know what, I never knew. But you know how you just kind of following the tradition of your family's
Well, there's
recipe?
a reason for them, right?
Oh, yeah. So we see that we've got that boiling. So the thing about this, the greens are already cut and they're pre-washed. And I'm going to slide them in here. I'm just going to kind of add about a little handful at a time. So it's like a science to it. So I'm going to take a little handful, put it in, and do my little stir fry. I'm kind of turning as I go, getting the water in between those collard green leaves. And the key thing of what I'm doing is I'm actually breaking down the collard green or softening it up. Traditionally, when collard greens are being cooked, they can cook simmer as long as 2 hours on that stove. So see how you can see the greens are breaking down, and you can tell the green is breaking down because it starts to get darker. Mm-hmm. So I know you got a scientific method. You got a scientific explanation about that for me too, don't you? Right?
I'm sure there is one. I don't know why they change color like that. I do know that their cell walls on those leaves are pretty thick.
Yes.
So it takes a little bit to break them open. So salt does part of that. The heat does a lot of that also, most of the work.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing, like even when I used to do a collard green recipe where it had water, the secret was just once you got everything all together, you just put that top on there and let it simmer and have great conversation. So I'm loving this because I have some of the great conversations from my family has occurred while we were all in the kitchen cooking. So see all of these greens, by the time they cook down, they are going...
get so much smaller.
Yes, they do. And you know what? If I love greens, I can actually make a meal out of this. So see how I got the greens there, and I'm just kind of turning over the vegetables, and I just kind of move it that way and get that in there. Turning as I go, getting the flavors all in there with the oil. See that steam coming through there? I just kind of do it. Oh man, it smells so good too.
Yeah, and you can really see the steam and the moisture that's coming off of all of the vegetables that are in there. You didn't add any water at all.
No water at all, and it's, yeah. And once I put all the greens in there and I've turned them, then I'm gonna let them simmer a little bit, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. But my key thing is I want to get all the greens in this pot first, so it can really work to get those flavors out. I love using the sweet onion, and see how colorful that is too?
Yeah,
and the
great.
sweet pepper. Now here's a little tip. If you're a collard green connoisseur, you love collard greens, one of the things we know is that after the frost, if you have a garden with collard greens, after the frost hits the greens, it actually makes them sweeter. So collard greens will grow in your garden all the way up through October and November. And when the frost hits them, unlike some plants that it will kill, it actually makes the collard green sweeter.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome? So now I'm going to take this, of course, and do my magic turning of the vegetables. My final turn, just to show you all how many greens. See how full that pot looks right now? In about 15 minutes, you'll be like, all of those greens shrunk down to that? So I'm gonna stir this up. Actually, I'm not really stirring. I'm folding the greens. I'm not a chef. I'm just a sister who cooks in the kitchen for her family. So I'm actually folding the vegetables into the greens and flipping all that water. And you can see the water towards the bottom of the pot, but it's not a whole lot amount of water. Give you an example, you still can use water if you want to, but for those who want to do a waterless recipe, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to have, it has a lot more flavor when you're not diluting it down with that water. And the other thing is, collard greens are so healthy. Well, and there's so many good things in them.
It is. Another secret too was that most of the folks, when they were cooking it with the water, most of the time they would cook it with a meat product.
Right.
Either smoked turkey and some can even use smoked turkey in this recipe too. If you're not vegan or vegetarian, you might appreciate having a little meat in your greens. But this is the whole meal. Would be collard greens, and cornbread. So see how that's already, you can tell it's already cooked down already. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a top on this. And then we're going to come back in about 10 minutes. And then we'll taste them. So we're going to take a break at this time, and then when we come back, we'll dive into those collard greens.
All right, so while we're waiting for those to just finish up, let's talk a little bit about some of the ingredients and the collard greens themselves.
Okay, so you can go to any grocery store or any market. Most of the time, the collard green is sold in a bunch like this, and usually it has about 10 broadleaves per bunch. So around Thanksgiving time, when we're cooking for a large family, we might have a big giant pot and cook maybe 20 bunches or more for like large family gatherings.
Sure.
The other ingredient I was telling you about, that sweet onion. As long as it's a sweet onion, it doesn't necessarily have to be a Valdelia onion, as long as it's a sweet onion. If it's after the frost is hit and your collard green is already sweet, it might not necessarily need to be a sweet onion.
Sure.
Because a lot of people like that sweetness that's in there. And of course, we talked about the garlic. Of course, this garlic, this is huge. We'll call this gigantic garlic. Hey, but I love something about garlic. It's just really good. I know for the immune system, they say. And then, of course, The red tomato, it can be a vine ripened, it can be aroma. It doesn't matter what type of tomato it is. I mean, if you wanted to sit there and chop up cherry tomatoes in it, it would work too, long as it's a red tomato.
Sure.
And I love these little miniature sweet peppers. These boogers are pretty good. I usually buy these because I put pepper in everything, sweet peppers in everything. In my eggs in the morning, so you might see onions and pepper and tomato in my eggs as well, but these are really great.
And those are a little bit sweeter, I think, than the full-grown ones, too.
I think so, too. Just, I think the advantages of some of the smaller leaves, like even on the collard green, there's the advantage of having that smaller baby leaf, of course, makes for a more tender green.
Sure.
And I think for the sweet peppers, it makes for a more sweeter pepper. And of course, the olive oil. I like the extra virgin olive oil. You know, if it was up to me, I'd probably hand press the olive oil and squeeze it out. But since I don't have time for that, the extra virgin
for sure.
olive oil works really good. I am hooked on this pink Himalayan sea salt. It's not an overwhelming salty flavor.
Sure.
And then, like I said, if you don't want to sit there and chop up the garlic cloves, the garlic powder is great.
Yeah.
You know, but for those who don't want to do garlic powder or garlic, the garlic powder and salt, they could actually just do a garlic salt mixture.
Yeah.
And it's one-stop shot.
And the great thing about that is most people have, garlic powder, garlic salt, something like that in the kitchen most of the time anyway, so it's easy to pull together.
But that's, I tell you, the nutritional value of that collard green, one that I've always used in my family is keeping the system regular.
Yeah.
We don't talk much about
that. It's real high in fiber.
Yes.
And it's not, fiber has a lot of benefits. One of them is that it keeps you regular, keeps everything moving. But it also fills you up a lot.
Okay.
So it keeps you from overeating and keeps you from eating things that are maybe less healthy. It also has all kinds of benefits for just your cholesterol, for instance.
Okay.
Fiber is really good for cholesterol. It's really great in sort of lowering the impact when you eat sugar. If you also have a lot of fiber with it, your sugar levels rise more slowly.
Okay.
All right, so it kind of keeps you a little bit more even, so you don't get these spikes in blood sugar, which can be hard to deal with. And if you get too high blood sugar too often, that leads to diabetes and things like that. So, high fiber foods are absolutely wonderful, and greens are incredible high fiber foods.
Oh, that is awesome. I wanted to share also too, this collard green recipe is interchangeable. You can use it with cabbage, you can use it with kale. My favorite green, of course, is collard, but I've also used this same recipe with the kale as well, and different variations of the kale.
And what I find fascinating about collard greens and kale is that they are the same species.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
They're Brassica oleracea. And it has, are you ready for this? I'm going to read off my paper here so I don't forget any.
Okay.
In this species, collard greens, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and kohlrabi. All the same species.
Oh, wow.
They're just different cultivars. And in the same genus of Brassica, mustard greens, canola, rutabaga, turnip, bok choy, and broccoli rabe. They are basically all the same plant. So like almost every true vegetable that you get at the grocery store, with the exception of like potatoes and carrots, is one of these. So it's cabbage is tightly bound, greens are loose leaf, but they're mostly the same plant. A lot of the same benefits across the board for all of them, are all extremely healthy.
Okay.
So when kale became a superfood, I mean, there's no reason it could be collard greens. It's basically the same thing.
That's true.
All of them pretty high in vitamin C.
Okay.
Really low in sugar, high in calcium, high in vitamin K. And vitamin K is great, especially with calcium, because it's good for bone health and bone development. High in iron, high in vitamin A. And then there's a couple of things that they're studying a lot of greens for health benefits.
Okay.
They might be protective against certain kinds of cancers.
Okay. Wow.
There's
that's interesting you said about the vitamin C, because recently I broke my toe and it's actually still healing. But the doctor actually gave me a prescription for extra vitamin C, and I was like, I don't think think I really need it because I mean collard greens are on my menu every week. There's some kind of way, like I said, I would sit there and eat a bowl by itself, or I'll make some cornbread to go along with it.
Yeah, I mean one cup of 1 cup of collard greens, pre-cooked, which is not a whole lot of collard greens.
Oh, okay.
That's a fifth of your vitamin C you need in a day.
See, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's why the pot liquor is just really so great. Imagine all of that kind
It's
of
got all those
you're kind of boiling,
nutrients.
making an elixir, really.
Yeah, it's got all those nutrients that are in there, and that's the problem when you boil. If you use too much water and you have to drain it, you're draining away vitamin C, calcium, magnesium, iron, all that's going down the sink.
Yeah. So let me take a look at here. They've been simmering really good. And I'm going to take this top off. Oh, look at there. Ooh. I don't know if you got a good view of that. Look at see how they have cooked down.
It was steamed over the camera.
Okay.
There we go. No, it's
there we go.
Up,
Yeah. See how they have cooked down?
Great.
They are beautiful. Oh my goodness. So I'm trying to think. I guess I can't taste it by myself. You got to taste it.
I'll give it a try too.
You got to taste some too.
Absolutely.
All righty. So here we are, a beautiful, and look how gorgeous that is. It's almost like too pretty to eat, but we got to taste it because the greens have cooked down. They've got those sweet peppers and onions. Oh my goodness.
The smell of this is just absolutely incredible.
These, you know what? These are delicious. All I need now is some hot water cornbread.
Oh my goodness. That's so satisfying. And it even has a little bit of that that sort of rich, savory umami flavor in there too. Even though there's no meat or anything in there. It's really satisfying.
And the other thing too, this is ready in about 15 minutes. But if you wanted to have the same tradition of cooking it down, you could keep it on low and keep it simmering on low for at least an hour, and you get even a softer green texture, and even more of those flavors seep in. Now, this particular recipe would not produce a lot of pot liquor. It keeps the nutrients right up in the green.
Sure.
But if you're looking for a recipe where you do want to produce a pot liquor, you could also, for those who aren't necessarily vegan, if you're vegan, you could add vegetable broth. If you're not vegan, you could add chicken broth.
Sure.
And in that way, it kind of still gives you a meaty flavor. Or you can go the traditional route with these same flavors and cook it with, I don't eat a lot of pork these days, so you can smoke turkey or
Yeah, this is really great. Thank you so much for sharing this recipe with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And again, thank you so much, Annie, for coming to Museum Center to share this with us. We do have your exhibit on her shoulders at Museum Center right now through till August 30th. Wonderful, wonderful artwork in there. Really wonderful to see all of our visitors go in there and be moved by your art. It's really powerful to walk through that space.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure all the way around, from the gallery talks and to now this cooking demonstration.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All righty.
Bye-bye.